All right.
Welcome to the Pinelander Podcast, the official podcast of Pineland, broadcasting to you from an undisclosed location deep inside Pineland, where we discuss faith, family, finances, firearms, freedom, food, and everything else in between, with those who believe in living free and living out the values that made this country free.
All right, welcome to the Pinelander Podcast. My name is Paul LaFavor. I'm here with my Ranger buddy, Mike Blackburn. And you are listening to the Pinelander Podcast, the podcast for America's Warriors. Today is Friday, the 21st of June, 2024. And, we cover a vast amount of topics on the Pinelander. And one that we often go back to, which is really important, is how not to become a statistic. Also, how not to become a casualty, how to, get yourself ready, your family ready, and then also not be, a panicked weirdo. Right. And that aspect really is, doing things that make sense, having a mindset that is setting you and your family, putting you in the right place for whatever comes down the pike. Being smart, being wise about that. Keeping tabs on what's going on, and then having a family network and all these things. And we've talked about that before. We talked about homesteading, and one of the important things that I think we're now calling something is having a preparedness mindset. And that's really what we want to talk about. We have one of our guests we've had on here before, Rodney McDaniel. Welcome.
Hey guys, glad to be back at the G base.
Yeah, and Rodney has also got a buddy that he's brought into the G base. We did the far and the near rec. If you could introduce your friend.
Yeah, so with us today is Ryan Coe. Ryan's a tremendous friend. I think of him as a dear brother. He's the owner and director of training and consulting for Apex Defense Group out of area close to Winston-Salem. Offers a plethora of classes, everything from shooting, whether it's rifle, pistol, shotgun, does a lot of medical training, but has a deep, thorough knowledge of all things. I mean, just a tremendous guy. So welcome, Ryan.
Yeah, welcome, Ryan.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Well, where do we start, Ryan? I mean, I know for the last several years, I've tried to be prepared as far as for my family. I've bought food, I probably should have a lot more ammo than I have. I'm not a big gun guy. I mean, I got a rifle, for hunting. I got a shotgun. I got a couple sidearms, but nothing, nothing, crazy like some of the gun enthusiasts out there. But I have some food.
Hey, leave me out of this, Mike.
Yeah, but I try to have the means to at least protect my family. If things aren't available on the grocery store shelf, we're not going to starve. We got some food set away. Some medical, very little. I probably need more medical, but I've tried to take some steps just to make sure that my family is prepared for whatever might happen. And we don't know. I mean, it's the world, and the world's constantly changing. So we need to be prepared for anything, I guess.
Absolutely. And it goes back to, you kind of mentioned on the 3 Bs, beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, right? Most of us consider prepping to be food and water and firearms and ammunition, and then some medical supplies. But as far as getting a family together, I just think it's hard. I think it's hard for one family to grow in the vast amount of skills and the financial resources and time, space, and equipment that most people would need in order. There's this misconception, where I want to be prepared for the next 3 years for my family. And we just don't have the skills anymore, nor the society based upon to be able to handle that most of the time, most people. And so I usually will start by saying, you need a group, you need a community, you need a network. I know a lot of people that we see come across kind of asking preparedness questions. It's, a husband and wife, or a guy living by himself, and he's like, yeah, man, I got my war closet and I got my canned food and I'm good to go. And I just think that we miss a whole different aspect to preparedness that we really should talk about as far as that goes. I also think we miss the mindset. I was thinking about the Baltimore Bridge that collapsed, and we were doing a family-based class, and I said, what if it's that vehicle that's on that bridge, and that vehicle is going down into the water, and you've got your kid in the back seat buckled up in a car seat? Have you thought through some of these scenarios from a mindset issue?
Well, that's scary. That's a scary thing to think about right there.
It is. What's my timing? What's my timing before the water pressure causes me no longer to be able to open that door? That fall is going to expedite that timeline. So then how do I have a tool close to me that I can use to break a window? Okay, if I break a window, do I have time to get my kid out of the car seat? Have I rehearsed that from the front seat rather than the back seat? Does the kid know what to do to stay calm? There's just so many things that we miss out on preparing for, the zombie apocalypse, that really hurts us in the day-to-day life. We've got a small little mutual aid group, as we call it, some people call it a prep group or other things, just real close friends and family. We get together once a month, we train, we have Bible study, we eat a meal, and everybody kind of passes on something to someone else, and we learn skills. And some of the guys, they laugh. They said, either I could be sitting at a ball game or sitting there watching TV at the house, or I could be out here in the sunshine with fellow brothers and growing in our knowledge, growing in our skills, growing in our friendship. And I think that's really important part, where we've in this group, there's about 30 to 35 adults, and we kind of are all over the state. And we've had one of the females in the group have a tire blow on the side of 85 right outside of Durham. And she got on the group chat. One of the guys in the group was there in 15 minutes and was able to change her tire for her on the side of the road and teach her how to do it in that moment. This lady was 50 and had just never learned. And another guy got stranded at the airport in Charlotte. Flight got delayed. Instead of trying to worry about getting a rental car, one of the guys drove and got her from the airport. Just little things like that. A couple of the guys have moved houses, bought new houses, and so we all come together and we help them move. We do things like that together. And I think that we are so focused on the worst case scenario that oftentimes we kind of miss the community and the right here and the right now. We're so focused on the putting on the armor that we miss being a part of the army.
Yeah. Hey, I want to throw something in there on that, guys. We've talked about this before on previous podcasts, but just that sense of community that Ryan's talking about, and that's beautiful, by the way. I mean, just brother helping brother, and I think that's really, we need to be more like that. Of course, in the time, in the culture that we live in, there's less and less of that. And we've talked about, do you know your neighbors?
Mm-hmm.
And know their neighbors, what their needs are, what their wants are, what their desires are, but also what their skills are. So I like to think of it. I was thinking about this earlier, but you've got hearing distance, sight distance, and walking distance. So hearing distance is literally I can hear my neighbor next to me. I need to be really close to that person. I need to know what his needs are, know what his routines are, just be connected with him more so than the person that's within sight distance. And that might be a person that I see that's on, way down the road. I walk up my front door, I'm in my front yard. I can see many houses down the street that I live on. And then there's walking distance. And those are the people that are within the scope of, within my community. And I think we miss that a lot. And I think it's just because we're so self-absorbed and self-centered, and we just think about ourselves, and we're not focused on the bigger picture or that community aspect of it, and the fact that none of us can do all those things. Like none of us are going to be the medic on the spot or the best shooter necessarily or the fill in the blanks.
Well, you made me think of a couple things. Like number one, it's so contrary to kind of like how we socialize today with social media. Everybody thinks they have hundreds of friends, thousands of friends, or whatever, that they've never met physically. Probably don't even live anywhere near them. And are they real friends? And is that a real network? The other part that you bring up is sort of distance, which is there is a distance to this thing. And I recall we had a guest on one time, it was Pete Crittenden. He was talking about sort of the perfect community size. You can have too few people, which you brought out, Ryan. It's just too much for one family really to kind of handle. But I think you can also maybe perhaps get too large, unmanageable. Or maybe not, or maybe that community is based off, or the size of that community is basically based off what you're talking about, Rodney, which is sort of the distance from the geographical space that you occupy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, to hit on that, most of us don't know our neighbors and don't know the skills and don't know the community, and like Rob was saying, no one can do it all, and even a family in a 24-hour wake cycle, if you've got a dad, mom, 2 kids, it's going to be hard in a 24-hour wake cycle to pull security, to sleep, to get water, get some type of heat, cook food, preserve food, grow food, garden, take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. But then, I mean, to your point, absolutely, groups can get too big. And what we've seen even in past groups with students setting up groups and helping other groups kind of get started, it's even tough to keep interaction, to keep interest. Usually we'll see people join, and within 3 to 6 months, the priorities are shifting, and at least by a year, the group dichotomies are coming out where it's, do we really agree on morals, values, and ethics? Do we really have the same investment? And you see these large, 30 or 40 groups that start dwindle down to 10 or 12 most of the time, at least in our experience. And that's what it dwindles down to. But even before you think about groups, just getting to know people, getting to know your neighbors, and some people talk about, starting groups. The best groups that we've seen get started, guys have met either at training classes or at church. Those are the 2 best places where we actually see groups succeed and, people coming together. It's been training classes, meeting guys in the training classes close to them, and then they start forming networking and then learning from each other and growing together, or it's been guys at church. And I think it's just because usually those beliefs, morals, values, maybe that interest, that mindset, that preparedness mindset, like you talked about, kind of go hand in hand together, and that makes a group usually stronger, where people can say, hey, I'm valuing something above myself. I'm valuing my future family safety. I'm valuing these people. You come to love these people. I mean, they become like family, and so you're more invested in that for the sake of their own interest, not just what fulfills your interest that day.
I remember I heard this guy, he was talking. He says the first thing he did was he realized that he had to move, that he wasn't living around folks that shared his values and his idea of what life was about. And so, I mean, that was the first thing that he had to do. He physically picked up, and his family went and made sure that they were living amongst like-minded people. How important is that?
Yeah, I think that is important. Or having somewhere to go to. Some of these guys, they live, in downtown Winston, but they'll meet a guy on the outskirts of Winston with some land, and they'll say, hey, let's start training together. Let's start doing something. And then they become like friends, and then the wives become friends, and the kids become friends. And you grow these connections, you grow these networks. So, even if you don't have the resources to pick up and move, or the desire, maybe, we've got most of the guys in our group have no desire to pick up and move, but they might live 30 minutes away, and they say, okay, well, let's all, we're within 30 minutes. We know where we're going to go should something happen. If it calls for that, we have these SOPs and plans in place. We're going to go to this location. We're all going to, get through it together. We're going to, work on thriving, not just surviving. And we're going to do this as a team. And so I think that's also important too, is setting these SOPs. But man, my first step when people talk about, getting to know neighbors and getting to know groups, hey, I always recommend two things. Have a neighborhood cookout. Spend a little time, spend a little money, have a neighborhood cookout, invite the people like Rob was saying in your immediate vicinity, and start there and just start getting a feel for people. Other thing I've done is I've hosted neighborhood Bible studies. Nice. And so I'll just send out a letter, and to everyone on the street, within a 1 mile radius. And I'll say, hey, I don't know what your beliefs are. I don't, I might not know you, but you're more than welcome to come to this Bible study. There's going to be food. There's going to be friendship. We're just going to look into the Word, and we have seen, at least around here, really good turnout. And now all of a sudden, if we see them in the restaurant, they'll come and sit down with us, and we'll start having conversations. When they're going through something, they'll text us and ask us to pray for them. And then you can slowly start to, hey, as those friendships and relationships form, don't make it a job interview at the cookout. It's there to meet people and make connections. But as you kind of figure out who might be more in alignment with your beliefs, and, the guys who show up to your Bible study, let's say, who maybe align with your beliefs, morals, values, and ethics, then you can start saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. The world's not getting better. I don't want to be paranoid, but I want to be prepared. And, hey, let's talk about skills. And then you get to know each other. And then say, okay, another good intro is, hey, go to Walmart, spend a little money, buy them walkie-talkies, and say, hey, if anything happens as a community, turn your walkie-talkie on. We're going to be on channel 2, and here's some walkie-talkies. And if anything's going on, man, we know we can, if phones go down, we can hop on some walkie-talkies and we can talk, and the kids can talk. And, there's just that sense of community where you're putting some things in place, even simply bringing them food if they're going to have surgery, bringing them food after they get out of the hospital. But so many of us, even in the church, right, we all have different skills, whether it's evangelism or teaching, or we all are blessed in different ways. And I think that everyone has something to bring to the table, even if they don't think so. And sometimes you just need to extend that olive branch out and start those conversations.
Well, the thing,
man, that's beautiful.
That is beautiful. And I what I really want to kind of get into is I like the idea that you said that you meet regularly.
Yeah.
Once a month, you have a get together where people can come in and they can kind of get back on this sort of topic and discuss being prepared and anything else, of course, that's coming up. Because what you have is a community. I mean, you're really extended family. You really created a tribe, if you will.
Yep.
Let me jump in there. Just being a fly on the wall, I'm not much of a prepper, so I'll just kind of out myself. I have, and saying prepper is, I was like, have you even listened to what he just said? But I do have, I have some stores of food and stuff like that. But I'm actually, my gears are turning. So at our church, I would say that I see immediately how we can implement some of these ideas, which are good. We do have a church network where we text and stuff like that. But I think we can go a step further and to have, more of an alert system, may have like a plan, like if things go sideways in particular scenarios, which can happen. As you started off talking about that, Ryan, like things are going well. You're driving across the Scott Key Bridge, and next thing you know, you're in the drink. Do you have a plan, for various things that could happen? So I think we had when the hurricane, was it Florence, came through, we that kind of shook us up a little, like, hey, we need to shake out a plan here, an emergency plan. This is going a little further though, and I'll be honest, I'm convicted by this because I haven't actually sent out flyers to everybody in the neighborhood, and I don't know everybody on my street. So that's also good. It's kind of It's kind of an American thing too, is to kind of know people around your neighborhood.
We used to just do this. I mean,
Yeah.
our parents and grandparents used to just do
that.
this. But I think the younger generations. Of course, I'm hardly young anymore, but we've gotten really away from that, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. And so this is a good wake up call for me personally.
Yeah, and I think these groups, when we meet, usually it's a 15-minute, hey, how you doing? How's the family? What's going on? What can we be praying for? What do you need? What's going on with you? Fill us in on what's going on in your life. Unburden whatever you've got. We're here to listen, and hey, we're here with you. And then we'll have a task that day. We do some type of training. And so we set all this up at the start of the year, and we say, look, this is what we're deficient in. This is what we're strong in. Let's keep our strengths, but work on our deficiencies, and so we'll pull resources, or we'll do something. If it's something we want to buy, a financial, we'll pull resources and say, hey, we want a new tiller for the garden, or something for the plot of land that we want to garden on. And so we'll all go in together and do that. That way it's not one person trying to buy, a new tiller. And then, so the trainings can look like, they're not always tactical, Yeah, we do. We of course do tactical training, but we also do gardening. Everyone learns something, and we all pass it on. And sometimes we'll do, low light things. We'll do land nav, we'll do water purification, fire. But the big ones that we do more than anything is like foraging. Man, what's in our backyards that we can eat? We'll make tinctures. So in like the prime medicinal herb seasons, we'll go and we'll gather together, and man, a family can make a bunch of tinctures, but a group of 30 people can make a whole lot more, where we all get to pool resources, and we'll make our medicinal tinctures. We'll work on medical. So our most recent training, we had one of the guys from the group go and simulate a fall on the backside of property, slip down a ravine and fall, had a medical emergency. So he gets over comms and says, hey, I'm down, my leg's broken. Here's where I'm at, basically, roughly on the property. So then everyone got to practice their land nav skills. They got to practice moving to the objective, and then wilderness first aid. And these are all things that can happen, tomorrow. It's not just the shooting. It could be, where are we going to, set up comms? How far do our walkie-talkies go? Just little things. I think the biggest thing is we think training being, like preparedness training is such a bad taste in most people's mouths nowadays. I think it's important when we train, it's a space and a place to practice what we're preparing for. And I always say, you never know where God's going to put you. And so if you've never practiced this, let's say you take a TAC Med class with us. I've had 7 students take a TAC Med class and save their life or someone else's life within a year. That's 7. And so it just gives us a space to practice these things, just to truly be ready to build those skills, to get rid of those misconceptions, to passing down those skills. I'm watching dads pass on skills to their 12-year-olds on gardening, things that their grandfather taught them. I'm a young guy, I'm only 30, but my grandfather taught me a lot of the medicinal herbs and plant IDs and foraging, and now I'm able to pass those on to people older than me and younger than me. And it goes back to generations. God's a God of generations, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so it's more than just a place to get ready for something. It's also a place to help grow other people, and then they can pass it on. And we never really know how far this ripple effect goes, even without something bad ever happening.
Yeah. Hey, so for somebody, okay, so I'm probably the least read on to this stuff. I'm going to assume that. So for like a starter kit, now you talked about a lot of different ideas, and you talked about beans and bullets and Band-Aids. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, alliteration is awesome. But like a starter kit, I mean, so like, how do you, if you're listening to this podcast and you're like me, how do you get started? It's like step one.
Step one would be start 10 years ago.
Joking. You're behind the power curve. So I'm going to go to your houses when things get bad.
Hey, absolutely.
I'll be banging on the door. Let us in.
That's right. Yeah, what's the password? So FEMA did a great study on this. And FEMA said that most natural disasters, you need to, now, whether we trust FEMA or not, you need to be prepared for at least 3 days of no power, no water, no help coming. And really, there's like 4 meals away from America kind of turning crazy. And FEMA even in this study said if the U.S. ever went 10 days without power, it would resort back to the feudal society.
Oh my God.
Like you're talking about knights, lords, kings, queens, and our own government, servants. Our own government said that, which. So my thing is, hey, let's start with 10 days. We don't need to conquer, all of Egypt in a day. Let's just start with 10 days. Get you 10 days worth of food. So what I would do is I would start and say, hey, let's just go to the grocery store when they're running a sale. Let's get 10 days worth of canned food. And you can rotate your stock out, as long as you replace it. Let's just get 10 days. What is 10 days per how many people in your family? What does that look like? Do we have that put away, labeled somewhere we're not robbing from every week? Because then we forget to replace it and something happens and bam, all right, we've got problems because we've been robbing our stock the whole time. Set it away. So what does 10 days of meals look like? 3 meals a day times the number of mouths to feed. What does it look like? And then I would start with water. What does that look like? A lot of people buy life straws and things. The problem with life straws is they don't filter out viruses, and you really have to be at that water source. And so for multiple people, it's really not sustainable versus something of equal price range would be like a Sawyer Mini, a Sawyer Squeeze. There's different Sawyer filters that do go down to 0.1 microns and do hit most of your viruses. And you can say, okay, we're going to go ahead and put one of these in place. We're going to get there. Midway USA ran a sale on them on a month ago. They were $30, $29.95.
I bought 2 during that sale. Actually.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, 2 more. I already got 40. But and so hey, we're gonna get 2 water filters. We're gonna get some extra blankets in case it's wintertime. We're gonna get some things to make some fire. And cotton balls rolled in a tube of Vaseline will start a fire like you've never seen. And so go to the Dollar Tree. Get a bag of 100 cotton balls and a container of Vaseline for $2.50, and you and your kids talk about what you're doing. You're trying to prepare, and roll cotton balls in that Vaseline and put them in a Ziploc bag and set them away for a rainy day, and tell the kids that they're there. Know where your water shutoff valve is at your house if you're on city water or city sewer. If that goes out, the problem is the water in the tanks of your toilets, for instance. If it gets below that fill line, the P trap, then methane gas starts to flow in, and that's a problem. Or other people's sewage backs up, and now that's a problem. So, going out in the yard and doing some lawn maintenance with the wife and showing her where that shutoff valve is. And if you don't know, calling the city or calling the town to come out and show you is something that's great. It doesn't always have to be buying something. Learning something is far more important than buying something most of the time. But then, medications and having a backup supply of meds and having a basic IFAK and a basic first aid kit, and then teaching the family how to use them, going to a med class. Classes are great places to learn. I'm not saying that because I teach classes. I'm saying that because, I started learning in classes and things too. So, yeah, it's really just starting tomorrow. We put it off and we wait, but just simple things. It's don't try to conquer it. Do a 10-day supply of food, 10-day supply of water, 10-day supply of medications, first aid equipment and things if you need it. Keeping your vehicles stocked maybe with some first aid and some trauma, and we don't mix the two. They're separate. But being ready is really a mindset thing. Start learning those skills. Rod talked about the 10-day challenge. We did a 10-day challenge for some of the students a while back, and it was 10 push-ups 10 times a day, right? 100 push-ups. Yep. It was walk, 10 miles for the week, so you could break it up or however it was, read 10 verses of scripture, take 10 minutes to learn a new skill. And that was the number one that we saw was the hardest for students, but also the number one that they said was the most beneficial.
And it was interesting because guys were doing everything from learning knot tying to how to sharpen a knife,
play a guitar that they've always wanted to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
So,
the thing.
Hey, Ron, I want to throw a couple things. So
go
on
ahead,
your
Ron.
list, I think that was a really good list.
That was a good
one
list.
one of the things I want to throw in there that I think most people miss is cash.
True.
And I think so. Paul, to your question, like what are some of the things that what can I do, or how should I have a preparedness mindset versus either a panic mindset? And so one of the things I think all the things that Ryan's talking about are things that can take fear and anxiety out through preparedness.
Yes.
So being prepared reduces that fear anxiety response. Ryan talks about that a lot in classes, whether it's a firearms class or whether it's a preparation class or whatever. The better prepared you are, the less fear and anxiety you'll have, because you'll have faith, trust, and confidence in yourself as well and your abilities. But back to that list. So I think cash is a big one. Like most people, especially in today's culture, and Mike, you kind of alluded to this a little bit. Most people in the younger generation, I mean, man, they're doing the Apple Pay or tapping their card. Well, if the electronic system goes down, you're pretty much done at that point.
That's right.
And so having some cash in your pocket, I think, is a good thing. Not to say that the currency is going to prop us up, but that finance component of it, I think, is something that definitely I would say, you need to check that box.
And in the younger generation, just simply a rainy day fund. So 1 to 3 months of your bills saved up in a savings account that you don't touch. That most guys my age and younger do not have that at all. That's another example.
Well, that's an old school one. Yeah, that I was taught. You gotta have that. I mean, and just jump in there. Maybe this is wrong. I don't know. Just sounding boarded off of you, Ryan. But it used to be 10% of what you made a month is what you put away. Now, I don't always do that, but that's the goal.
It's a good rule.
It's a good rule. I mean, I don't know. What do you say to that?
Rule.
And it's of course it's harder and harder to do with inflation now. But
yeah, and then grandkids.
Yeah.
Your daughters are going to school.
Yeah. But
Paul,
if you can do that.
Yeah. Paul, to your point, though, I think there's an old adage, and I think Charles Stanley coined this phrase, but he said, "Spend some, give some, save some, always."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and so, good. I mean, you can set lofty goals or whatever. Just make sure the goals that we're setting are achievable in any aspect of preparedness. But spend some, save some, give some, and I think always. And I think that's the key to what you're saying and what Ryan was saying about being prepared and having that money set aside for that rainy day or that whatever.
Well, I love what you brought up, which is just the peace of mind that kind of comes with knowing that you're going to be okay. Your family's going to be okay. You've thought some things through. You have some skills. I mean, I'm thinking, these are things also when you're sending, a son or a daughter off to college or whatever. These are a lot of these skills. You want to kind of ingrain in your kids before they leave the home and give them sort of a sense of peace about them as they embark on their life with a lot of uncertainties.
Yeah, absolutely. Having enough toilet paper on hand so you don't have to, it's all about thinking forward, right? And have enough dishwashing liquid that when it all, people make a run for it, you don't have to. And using glass storage containers rather than the plastic ones, they're easier to wash, and using utensils. So many, even in my family, they keep a lot of plastic utensils and paper plates and paper cups, and just keep an extra mason jars or extra utensils you can wash, or wood utensils for cast iron, and getting some cast iron. One of the greatest things I have is my grandfather's cast iron pot, and little things just to try to be more thrifty, and it actually saves in the day-to-day expenses, but also it is that peace of mind that, hey, I've got this if I need it and I know how to use it. It goes back to that. I'm not just well-rounded in my skills, but I'm well-rounded in my decisions. I'm well-rounded in my purchases. It all goes back to that well-roundedness, that mindset, peace of mind.
I think a lot of us think that there's a whole bunch of old school skills that are involved, and of course there are. I mean, I had to learn how to can, for instance. I mean, these are things that just my grandparents. I mean, everybody back in their day could can. They could grow a garden and preserve things, and things were down in the cellar and what have you. That was just normal life. But I think what's kind of fun also, and listening to you go through some of the laundry lists, is the fact that it's really a mixture of old school skills, which are perishable and we need to relearn as a society for sure. But there's also a lot of new technology that also kind of makes this a lot easier now. And you talked about one of those things, which the water filter, for instance. Is there anything else that either one of you have found that is sort of new technology, but is really benefits the person that has a preparedness mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. I still teach on the old school methods in everything I do. So if when I teach long range shooting, we don't use any tools, no kestrels, no rangefinders, no nothing in level 1. Everything is ranging with optics. Everything is on paper math. And then when we get to level 2, all right, the kestrels come out, the rangefinders come out, all the cool gadgets and gizmos that we all love and appreciate that makes it easier come out. Same thing with land nav. Land nav 1, pace speeds, compasses, and paper maps. By land nav 2, you've got your Garmin's and your, all of your cool satellite imagery, and we can do all that. So there are lots of tools that can benefit us. Things like solar. Having solar is an expensive thing. So I'll go and preface that. I don't think it needs to be like prep number 1, but the ability to have power. Everything pretty much revolves around power nowadays. Whether it's food preservation, whether it's, we can cold smoke, but it is going to be hard to preserve food without, lots of fuel or resources. So going the solar route, we have our small little backup. We get pocket-sized solar panels, solar panels in our survival bags in our vehicles, lots of things like that where we can power our phones, we can power our flashlights, our rechargeable batteries. So solar is one where technology, definitely benefits you to be able to make it sustainable. And there's even solar generators. And those solar generators we've tested, many of them like the Goal Zero specifically brand. And they actually run the house, they do it well. Things like a signal center is important. So a place where someone in the group can run communications. They can run their ham radios, or they can run their bow things hooked up to your large antennas. Yeah. And they are kind of our home base for radio. So if we're going to go forage, on the backside of the 75 acres, they know our location. They know about our distance, direction, our distinguishing landmarks, and they can run that. They can keep up with that. They're essentially our 911 operations center. They're a dispatch, even just for 75 acres and 35 people, you want that. And so the ability to communicate is huge. Rod and I do a lot of classes where we'll take all comms away in like a squad tactics class or a force on force class. And we just kind of see what happens. And then we'll give them their comms back. And the ability to communicate past, whisper distance is amazing and does a lot. So things like good communication equipment, a good solar systems, good water, but the rest of that really does come back to more of your old school thought patterns. You're canning outside of technology. You're canning, and they make now, your mobile latrine buckets with all of your enzyme powders and everything like that. And that's awesome. It's really good to have, for a latrine. But when you're talking about 30 people, that gets to be unmanageable. You're going back to digging old school latrines,
Yep.
But the waste buckets, they've got toilet seats on 5-gallon buckets with all of they sell them as kits. They have solar showers to give you hot water, and they're pretty inexpensive. We had hand pumps installed on all of our wells on the property. And they're already pre-primed. So it doesn't matter if you haven't used them for a year, you walk up, you pump them twice, and there is more water than you get out of your spigot clean water going right out. So you don't have to sit there and pump forever or run a bucket down a well. There's technology has come a long way for some of this. And water is going to be a big one where water is going to be crucial, as well as a fuel source are going to be your two biggest ones that we see.
Now, I know they have these conventions, preparedness conventions. I'm not sure exactly what they call them, but I've never been to one. Do you attend these things? And if you do or have, would you recommend people that are maybe trying to learn more about this, that might be a good place to start, or at least network and discover things?
Yeah, so I personally, I've never been to one. It's usually they're on weekends. I teach every weekend. Teaching's my full-time job. It's every Saturday for me is booked for the year. And so I don't ever attend those, and so I can't speak to them. I have had some students who've gone to some different ones, and some of them come back and they say, man, it was really cool. It was everybody coming together as a community. I got to meet a lot of really great people, learn some really great skills. And then I've had some students come back and say, hey, that was definitely not for me. That's a bunch of weirdos who are trying to sell me on buying gold and silver, and so as far as which to go to, I don't know. I couldn't speak to that.
Yeah, and you're probably right. They probably vary quite a bit depending on where you're going and who's hosting them. But yeah, I'm sure you get everything there. Homeschool crowd and everything else that kind of goes along with that.
Yeah,
I like the faith part of this whole thing. And how important is and how prevalent is this the faith community along with this preparedness? You find most people that get involved in preparedness are people of faith or families of faith?
It is a mix. We see some of the groups who come together, and I'm not speaking bad about any group, but it turns into a bunch of militia guys with SKSs and Glock P80s, 80% frames, and they're talking about, raiding people's houses, and they're practicing their live fire, throwing smoke grenades and raiding houses and things. And we see that. We legitimately see that. Those groups are out there, 30, 40 plus, and their only training is shooting, and their mentality is they're, going to hit the streets and do that. And we usually do not see those people being grounded in faith at all. We do see the groups who are trying to do it the right way. Most of them are faith-based groups where people are similarly, even if it's not even same denomination, it's same beliefs, same morals, same values, same ethics. And the groups that I think are really going to prep the way that they need to, or that we see prep the way they need to, I think faith is a key component. I mean, faith is measured by your feet more than anything. So what are you doing, to take a step of faith and serve one another and love one another? And that's really the big thing. And so I think faith is going to be really important. It kind of holds, at least our groups, it holds us all together. And I know if I need prayer, if one of the guys need prayer, we go to the group chat. And we trust the people praying for us, and there is that level of connection. And it took a while to get there. I'll be honest. It took a while to get there. It took a while, and the ones who weren't on board kind of weeded themselves out. I don't think that we have removed anyone, and I don't think that most of the prep groups that I know of, or mutual aid groups, that students have started, I think, pray for discernment, pray for those doors open, close. And I think that those people kind of weed themselves out more and more. But I think being in a like-minded spirit, like-minded in faith, I do think it's a glue. It's the ability to love and selflessly serve, the ability to walk out, to do this, to commit to this long-term in faith, and not just based on a feeling. Whenever something bad happens and feelings are heightened, we get a lot of guys going, hey man, I really want to join a group. But 3 months from now, when that feeling of fear, panic subsides, they won't be around, and so that faith to say, I'm being obedient to what God's calling me. He's calling us to do this. He's calling us to be a part of something better. I'm not just getting ready for the zombie apocalypse. I'm sowing into the next generation, or I'm sowing into my brothers. We're building community. We're networking. When you love and serve, I think that is where faith really binds these groups together to make them lasting.
Yeah, I think I wanted to sneak this in here too, is balance. And I've heard that, Ryan, is there's a balance in this. Even when you said just as you used, I think, Charles Stanley, spend some, save some, and give some. I would improve it by saying send some, because I like the 3 S's. That's just me. But the idea is this, the balance. There's this live and get out in the community, but then also don't be like the grasshopper, versus the ant, in the old parable of Aesop. Right. The ant is working hard. It's putting away things for a bad day. The grasshopper is just kind of doing its thing, and then he's caught hanging. And I think the just having a balance, and then looking after others. That's what I'm getting a lot out of this. But I think you would agree, is just looking at this way, and that way you don't become anxious in your prepping, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. When COVID hit, and there was no canned goods in the stores and no toilet paper. I had a student that trained a lot. He was probably at 2 classes a month or so, and had his, suppressed Mark 18s and his nods, and just all the coolest tactical gear and equipment that you could ask for, and the best of it, suppressed Barrett MRAD 338 Lapuas, and all the, he really went that route, guns and ammo and gear and survival supplies and everything else. And when COVID hit, he sent me a text. He said, hey man, you have any canned goods? Yeah, what's going on? What you need? And someone that you would expect.
Trade you some canned goods for some ammo.
Right? And he said, I have no food in my house. I don't even have the next meal in my house. And me and my wife are going, what's going on? And we don't have toilet paper either. And so I'm like, buddy, he said, I'll trade you. And I said, so I laughed. I said, how much ammo you got? He said, I don't know, 18,000 rounds or so. He said, what's it going to cost for a case of canned goods? And so I drove it over to his house on his front porch. I said, you don't owe me anything, man. You're good. But just laughing with him. And I thought, it is about balance. It truly is about being well-rounded, where we're paying attention to world events. It's a mindset thing. Situational awareness is going to be key. I want to, not only perceive what's going on, I want to comprehend it, and I want to project for future outcomes. So where am I projecting for? And nobody really knows, but the main key threats, what am I projecting for? And then what am I taking in around me? How can I better comprehend what that's going to look like, and then prepare for it and be well-rounded for different things that happen. But man, paying attention to world events is going to be key. And I think that we live in a society where we just don't anymore, where even, think about Israel, when Hamas attacked Israel, there was warning signs, there was things, and even, Hezbollah. I think, there's common talk now. Well, Hezbollah's not going to do anything. Hezbollah's not going to do anything. Yeah, and that's what legacy media says. But there's things coming down the pipeline where the head of Hezbollah is on his way out, and they're putting in a regime change there, and that might change things. And so my point is, the world is always evolving. Threats are always evolving, and we have to stay as watchmen on the wall to evolve with those and to better plan and prepare for ourselves and others. And I think if you are tuned in, there's not a knee-jerk reaction. It's reaction versus response. Reaction is running to the grocery store, buying all the canned goods and toilet paper that you can because you don't have any. A reaction is someone else is in control, or the enemy is in control, or we've been caught behind the 8 ball. We are not in control of the situation, and it drives us to perform an action. So like a react to contact, bad guy ambushed us. It might be a near ambush, man. His position, his moves dictate how we now have to respond or react. We are behind that 8 ball. Versus a response, I'm in control. We have a plan going into it. We are prepared going into it. We get to dictate what's going on. We're not driven by the wind and the waves in the world around us. We're driven by faith. We're driven by our plans. We know that, ultimately God's in control. We're not tossed around. We can stay more firm and steadfast, and we can weather that storm better without being anxious and afraid. We're above it. And that's really where I think the true preparedness mindset will take us.
That's good. I hear, maybe it's a bit simplistic, but you could say, have a plan B. All this is having a plan B. It's a long plan B, because, plan A, most people are kind of in that zone. They're, to use Cooper's color codes, they're in the white. They're not, they're going to be, a statistic. They're not thinking, they got all the guns, they got no food. But yeah, so be well-rounded, well-read, informed, know your neighborhood, all those things. There's a lot to this, and I'm better for listening to it.
Well, the other thing too is, you've been doing this for a number of years. Is this starting to pick up? Are you seeing more and more groups doing what you're doing?
Absolutely.
And at what pace is it picking up dramatically, or has it kind of been a steady sort of increase, or is it lately you're seeing more of this?
It has been within the last year. We've seen a pretty steady increase, and then in the last 3 months or so, it has skyrocketed. So I usually keep up with this. I've been in this industry teaching for just over 10 years. And so I like to keep up with trends and see what's kind of going on. And we train a lot of people. I know last year, just in open enrollment, I trained like 1,000 people, just over 1,000 people in open enrollment alone. And so I like to ask questions, I like to kind of see, I'm preparing myself in that, and we saw about a 30% increase in groups getting started just last year. 30% is pretty high in the last, quarter of the year. And we've seen just in this year alone, 15 new groups start. So we were averaging about 1 to 2 a month is what we were seeing, just in talking to students and guys who are trying to start something. So in 3 months, we've seen 15. So, that's a significant rise.
Yeah, and I think that just goes hand in hand maybe with the sort of anxiety levels that you see in these polls of just the general populace, with some of the uncertainty that they're seeing, of course, in the world and what's going on. I think people are getting kind of dialed in and kind of refocused on what they probably need to be. After all, right, they say survival is the first instinct of man. So a lot of people are at least I think it's smart that people are starting to do this, starting to be prepared and start to be ready in case an event something happens. If it doesn't happen, they're all the better, right? So
Right. That's the thing.
Ryan, listen, I tell you what, I appreciate you coming on, first of all. I mean, I think this is fantastic information. I've got a whole page full of notes here I've been taking as you've been talking. How does one get up with you? How does one take some of your classes, ask for advice? How do people reach you?
Absolutely. So our whole class schedule is on our website, www.apexdefensegroup.com. We're on Instagram. We're on, of course, Facebook, Apex Defense Group. I try to be very accessible to people because I feel like that's my calling right now. It's where I need to be. And so if you go to our website, at the bottom of the contact, at the bottom it says contact us. That is my personal cell phone number, my personal email address. And so if people have questions, any audience has questions, you can shoot me a text, you can shoot me an email, you can schedule a phone call with me. I'll be glad to talk you through it and everything else like that. I do want to be accessible to people. And so I put my own personal stuff out there, and so they can reach me that way over the website, over Facebook, any of those options.
Awesome. Ryan Coe, Rodney, our bro. Hey,
Yes, sir.
It was a wonderful hour we've had together talking about preparedness, mindset, and I would say how to live like a pioneer if you have to.
Yeah.
How to be ready to do it. Kick it old school with the technology.
Yeah.
Be smart with all that stuff. Be ready for whatever comes down the pike. And so I feel a little bit wiser having listened to this great wisdom here. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, guys.
Well, we hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Pinelander podcast. If you enjoy our unique content, please consider supporting our sponsors. Soft News provides special operations news from around the world. It's where Paul and I go to keep abreast of what's going on within the SOF community. Check them out at soft.news. American Partisan. It's the vanguard movement of Western civilization. Be sure to check them out at americanpartisan.org. And, of course, Blacksmith Publishing. We've been serving the warrior class since 2013. They have great titles written for warriors, by warriors. If you're looking for excellent reference material or just want to enjoy a great novel, be sure to check out the bookstore. Or if you enjoy hanging out with warriors, come spend some time with us in the G-Base over at the Pinelander podcast. All that's at blacksmithpublishing.com. Until our next meeting, stay mentally and tactically smart, physically and spiritually strong, and socially astute. To each other we pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. May God continue to bless Pineland.